win. So
yeah,
jog your memory here.
Mm-hmm.
What did I say to you the second the Yankees lost Game 2 on Sunday?
He texted me and he said, "This thing is not coming back to New York." And I was like, "Oh, you're Mr. Negative here." He goes, "No, the Yankees are winning both games on the road. This thing's done."
And what happened?
It's done. They did
it. Pumped about the Yankees win. I don't think the fact that they played the Royals takes away from it. If you're a fan, I don't think it should. But Yanks are here. They're where they're supposed to be. They take care of it in 4. What was your takeaway from not only last night's game, but the entire series?
I think it looked and sounded, first of all, the broadcast was terrible. It did, we could talk about that all day. It really made we talked about it on Tuesday. Same thing back in Kansas City, made it seem like a regular season game, did not make it feel big whatsoever. And that's just a bad job by TBS and Bob Costas. Felt really bad for my guy, Ron Darling. But it felt like and sounded like a business trip. And whether or not, you're not going to take anything away. I thought the Royals were the best team of the remaining teams in the American League other than the Yankees. So, you go there, you take care of your business, you win the series. It wasn't in dominating fashion, but there were some really dominant parts about this Yankee team. Felt like a business trip, though, Kevin. Really did. Nothing crazy. Wasn't an exciting series. Stanton, he's your top performer. I mean, this guy constantly in the postseason now for the Yankees is their biggest hitter. So credit to him and credit to that Yankee bullpen.
Yeah, and Stanton now, talk about defying the narrative or going against the narrative about you in the first 2 games of a series. Everyone's saying Stanton gets on in the 4th, 5th, or 6th inning. You just got to pinch run him at this point because if he doesn't impact the game early, you can't let him hurt the game late. How wrong was that? Game 3, Stanton hits the big home run in the 8th. Stanton hits, they had 4 hits in the game. He had a single, double, and a homer. So 3 of the team's 4 hits in that Game 3 win. And then in Game 4, Stanton does it again. And I thought the Yankees had a nice start in this game. That's something that they tend to struggle with. First inning scoring, actually capitalizing in this series and in a couple of games throughout the year. Early hot starts have often resulted in no runs, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Torres, double. Soto, single. Judge kind of lets him off the hook. But to get that first run last night with Cole on the mound, I thought was a huge momentum shift right out of the gate for the Yankees. And Cole pitched great. He should pitch great in these division series games that the team needs a win. He's your ace. Now he has to take it to the ALCS, where he hasn't been as good for the Yankees. But I think Yankee fans have to be a little relieved that they're not playing the Astros at this stop again.
Yeah, I also think you have to be relieved the 2 teams that you'll possibly be playing. I mean, I think that's also a big thing here. And the American League, will beat a dead horse here. It's weak, and the Yankees are the strongest, the overall strongest, number 1 strongest team in this American League. And the expectation is to get to the World Series, and they will get to the World Series. They just await their winner. But, Stanton, again, just changing that narrative. I'm looking at the numbers from the series right now. Listen, again, Judge did nothing. Judge had 2 hits in the series. He had a double yesterday. I know he hit the ball hard the last 2 nights, but, this is Aaron Judge. I don't really feel like talking about the fact that he hit the ball hard. You need something here. You need more than that when you're talking about the best player we've seen. We need more than that. So Stanton adds, Kevin, like another level to this lineup because you have Soto, Torres is hitting the leadoff spot, right? And you have Soto, who is Juan Soto and is still scary and takes pitches and gets on base. Judge, if he figures it out, is Aaron Judge. And then you have Stanton, who's almost unpitchable in the postseason. Yeah. And can I say this? They attacked Judge. They were like, and maybe it was a shock, but the game plan for the Royals was, we're going at Aaron Judge. Let's try and stun him here, especially with Reagan's on the mound early in that game. They went at him big time, and they kept going at him, and were like, hey, beat us. And the second he was to beat him, maybe they would have changed their approach and they would have pitched around him. But early on, they were like, hey, let's go. Try and hit this.
And he doesn't actually beat them until I believe it was his last at bat of the series when he hit the double and scored.
He ripped
So
the double.
he finally breaks through, but to a point where the Royals no longer have to worry about him because the game is over, the series is over. So he missed in a lot of spots. It definitely felt like when you look through the 1 through 5, Judge was the guy. And I'll throw Austin Wells in too, but obviously the standard is so much lower for Wells's performance than for Judge's. But
Mhm.
Judge was the guy out of the 1 through 5 that they kind of said, and you could tell this is the one that doesn't beat us. So we're going to go after him. He's not going to beat us. We're not going to walk him. Soto will pitch around. Stanton, we got to be careful with. Stanton dominated them, though.
Yeah.
And Torres, I think, had a really nice series, but they also pitched more carefully to him. Judge was the guy that they filled the zone against, and they pitched well against him too. They weren't throwing him, every 2 at bats. I thought he missed a great pitch, and they'd
Mhm.
throw him that 96 fastball down the middle that he would swing and miss. But they pitched him really well, but they did not shy away from him at all. You're absolutely right. Does that worry you going into the next series?
I don't know because again, the pitching on both sides is just so lackluster. The starting pitching, at least, other than obviously Schoolball, if that's the matchup,
Mhm.
I think it'll end up being Cleveland. But you know, a little bit, a little bit, but not really. I think you have to think, and I know it's a large sample size of him being bad in the postseason, but you have to think this generational player is going to break out of it, right? You have to assume that he's going to get out of this funk in the postseason and facing another lesser team in a longer series here. I think eventually you have to break out of it, no?
You'd think, right? I mean, even there has to be a point where he just connects. I thought yesterday, though, he looked much more comfortable than he had in previous games. Really, for the last 2 days, I thought he looked much more comfortable, better outs, louder outs. But at some point, he's got to hit the 2 or 3 run home run. At some point, even if he's not going to hit 300 or 350 for a stretch of games, he's got to have that stretch of 210 with a big time hit, a big home run. You'd think, but
And
listen,
I can understand it. And in past years when, it's the Red Sox and there's so much pressure, and then it's the Astros and the ALCS and there's all this pressure on you. It's like, all right, that's different. This, it's the American League Central. Again, not to take away from what they're doing, but this isn't what the Yankees and this group that has been to the postseason is used to. This, compared to what they've been through, is a cakewalk. So, it's not even like the pressure of the opponent is there. It's a much lesser opponent of what you're used to when you get to this spot.
yeah. So the interesting thing just about the pitching that I want to mention
Mhm.
on the other side of this. The Yankees didn't hit in this first series. And for
No.
2 reasons, I'm going to be optimistic about it because they won. So the first reason is most 1 seeds are just not hitting after the week off in the expanded playoff.
Mhm.
So I'm not too concerned with that. Also, is it possible that when considering all of the rest of the possible teams the Yankees can play, including the National League, Kansas City is the best starting pitching? Do you agree with that?
Um, no, not with the way the Padres and the Mets have pitched. I don't think
But the
so.
Padres starting pitching now with Musgrove out, I only worry about King.
I think Darvish, especially with what
Darvish
you
as well.
saw,
Darvish as well.
Darvish is good. Cease, I mean, they threw Cease out there in a bad spot on 3 days rest.
Yeah,
I,
but
I,
he's
I don't
in
like
both of
that.
his starts, he's a total mess in both of those.
But
So
then,
I'm not too scared of
so
Cease. But I agree with you that the Padres have the better pitching than the Royals. The Mets pitching has definitely performed at as high a level, if not a higher one
mhm.
so far. But I don't know if I prefer their top 3 over Waka, Lugo, and Reagan's.
You got to give the Royals credit. They did pitch well. I mean, they did, fit their MO. The Yankees just pitched a lot better. And what is so constant, that the one thing that Cashman always gets right is this bullpen, whether, It was right. It wasn't right necessarily, during the regular season, but Boone has righted this ship, getting guys in the right situations. And you want to tell me it was, the matchup, fine. But, to be able to do what they did in the postseason like that, no runs, was it 14 innings, 15 innings? Weaver completely shut down. Clay Holmes in the 7th and the 8th is great. So that bullpen's impressive, and that is definitely going to be a weapon getting them through the American League here.
Yeah, he pushed all the right buttons this series, Boone. I heard a great quote yesterday, actually, from his brother on WFAN. Brett Boone was on with the midday show, Licata and Tierney, and he said the tough thing about managers, because Tierney asked him straight up, if your brother loses the next 2 games, does he think he's going to get fired?
Mm-hmm.
And he said he's not thinking about that at all. But he said the tough part about being a manager in Major League Baseball is, as the fan perception goes, players win games, managers lose games. You never really win a series, win a game, and it's totally true. You never really win a series, win a game, and come back here and say, man, how great was Boone this week?
Yeah.
You don't really say that. But I thought this week was probably Boone's best week as Yankee manager. His bullpen decisions were great. Clark Schmidt over Luis Gil was an excellent choice. Now, I want to ask you this about Gil. I'm going to just go off my Boone part. Boone, good job, blah, 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 whatever. Gil now has not pitched in 2 weeks. Can you roll him out there for a start in a championship series, or do you keep him as that long bullpen role, get him some bullpen sessions over the next 2 days before the series starts, and go to a guy like Cortez, who's coming back from injury, which I think maybe is a little easier to ease into, or go to a guy, I would never, ever go to Stroman in my life, but he's an option.
So it's interesting. You need the 4 starters here. So in a normal scenario, I would try and get Gil out there. But I think you're in a spot where, again, you have the opportunity to bring Cortez back. And I think you're right that it's easier to get him back from an injury as opposed to bringing somebody back that just hasn't pitched in a while. It's weird, the weird decision making. I don't necessarily agree with what they did. I would have went to Gil, because if that's your better guy and you want to use him in the ALCS, you got to get him some reps. You got to get him out there at least a little bit to start a game. So I think I would probably try and go Cortez and leave him in a spot where he could come in as a long man, like the Mets have been using with David Peterson a lot, that weapon in the pen. That's what I would do. But and you would have to remind me here how he was towards the end of the season. Gil, was he banged up? Was he pitching well? Was he not pitching well?
He was pitching well, but on short stints. Like he wasn't going 75 plus pitches. He wasn't, and he had the narrative all year of he has a pitch limit. He has an innings limit. So we knew that. I think I'd start him in a game 4, Luis Gil. I'd start him, and I'd put Nestor on that short leash. He can come in the 2nd or 3rd inning and give me 4, and then we can go to the pen. Or you get surprised and Gil's rolling through the first part of the order. Let's just keep him out there.
Right. It's a tough spot. It's a tough spot for Boone, and the way they're going to manage this is obviously a Cashman decision as well. I don't know. That's strange. That's really strange. He really was on the innings limit. That was never a rumor. That was always
real.
True. That was always real.
And then you made me think on the other side of that, guy was on an innings limit, having a great year. He's had these 2 weeks off now. Maybe he's refreshed. And maybe he's able to just come out and be the guy he was in the first half of the year, which was absolutely dominant.
I don't trust that. I mean,
I don't trust that either. But
it can happen though. And again, I don't want to put the American League down, but I am. It's like you have the ability to do that. You almost have the ability to test. You're up 2-0. Let's say the Yankees win the first 2 in Yankee Stadium, and you're up 2-0, and you want to say, what does Gil have? Great, game 3 or game 4 if you win game 3. Let's see what Gil has. It's almost like testing things out.
Absolutely. And I'm going to project the Tigers here only because that's the pitching rotation you care about, simply because of Skubal getting 2 or 3 games. But if it was the Tigers, Skubal is pitching games 3 and 7. So you only get him twice. So I feel like the Yankees can afford a little bit of starting pitching if you have a 2-0 lead going into the school bowl game, let's see how Heel looks here in game 3. Let's
Yeah.
throw him out there because we know that school bowl is going to come out and shove. You kind of just have to accept it. Try and get 2 runs, try and get him out in the 6th inning. That's a total win against this guy. But Heel in a game like that, let's throw him out there. Let's see what he's got, because the Tigers also would present a nice, really either of these teams, but especially the Tigers, because we know the Tigers don't score runs. Even when they win, they find ways to win. They pitch well. They don't score runs. So this is a good series before a World Series to kind of get your arm back if they do get the Tigers. Cleveland scares me a little bit more hitting and offensively. Ramirez, Kwan, Jimenez, Naylor, these guys scare me a lot more. But still, I think the Yankees are in a great spot to test it out because of the 2 opponents they'll face.
100%. Did you see that tweet about the Tigers yesterday? It was going around, or 2 days ago. It was
Which one?
somebody explained the Tigers in NBA terms, and it was it's like basically you have 11 Joe Ingles, and then once every 5 days you get Luka Doncic. It's a screwball on the mound, and it's like, yeah, it makes sense.
That's spot on. That is spot on. Did you see the one that I had sent for game 3, and it was a Cleveland fan. He said, really, really afraid of going on the road against the Tigers. Playing a day game in the city with the highest unemployment rate is trouble.
Yeah, I saw that.
So Tigers present a threat here. Every 5th day.
Every 5th day, you do not want to play them.
No, you don't. And I'm going to backtrack quick on something about Yankees pitching here. Do you truly think Heel is their number 2? And you're not wrong if you think that. I don't think that. But do you think Heel is their second best pitcher?
Not Rodon. It's definitely
I think
not
it's
Rodon.
Schmidt.
All right. The only issue I have with Schmidt is that he didn't pitch for about 4 months. But
yeah, that's the problem.
If he did, then
that's the problem. And I think the sample size we got, he was the second best pitcher on the team. I'm a huge Clark Schmidt guy, but yeah, they're in a tough spot because, to the point of this conversation, you're 2, 3, 4. If it's Schmidt, Rodon, Heel, you don't feel exceptional about any of the 3.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I don't feel great about the Yankee rotation. That bullpen has to be cooking for me to feel really good about this team holding up the World Series trophy at the end of the year. I mean, that's how I feel. I don't trust the rotation. I don't trust Rodon at all. You got his wife live tweeting the game, talking crap about fans. That's great. Good job there. I don't trust him. I really don't. And I wish I could trust Heel because, again, he pitched so well early in the year, but, he obviously has the limits. And Schmidt got hurt. So it's tough. It's really tough. And I want Cortez out of the bullpen. I want Cortez to be the guy out of the bullpen that, you could go to as a long man. I don't know if you're going to have that, though.
Yeah, I don't know about that. You don't know about Rizzo either at first base because those are their big injuries coming into this series.
What's the point of Ben Rice being on the roster if they're not using him? And you have Birdie playing first, who did a pretty good job, and Oswaldo did a good job as well. What's the point?
I have a feeling Rice won't be on the championship series roster, but the reason I can justify him being there was Cabrera and Birdie, inexperienced defensive first basemen. In the case that neither of them can play, if they're both making an error or 2 that are real backbreaking, if they can't make consistent picks on short hop throws, then we're going to have to put Rice in the game. And Rice isn't even a good defender, but he's a natural first baseman, so he's obviously better than Birdie and Cabrera at first, but not by much. So that was a nice, pleasant surprise, I think, for the Yankees because both guys played a nice defense at first base. But Rice should not be on the roster in the next round.
No, that makes a good point. You make a good point there with the defense, but now that they've proven it 100%. And Rizzo was a finger injury. That's why he's out.
Fractured finger, yeah. And you can see him. He's in a little bit of a brace or a cast on the bench. So he definitely can't play. I can't imagine how your fractured finger heals in 10 days to play first base and play baseball.
Keep him out. But one more series. He's good.
They're not missing him. Now, I don't know. So I get that thinking. Do you feel like Is it really just a lock that they're going to be in the World Series?
That's how I feel.
Because
That's how I feel.
I'm not
I
there.
mean, you shouldn't feel that way. I mean, you should not feel that way. But
No, and listen,
Kevin, I
Detroit,
can't remember. Kevin, and I know baseball's weird. I understand
yes.
baseball's a weird sport, but I've never ever seen a team in a Final Four in the league, and when it'll be Final Two in a league, that is so much better on paper and everywhere else than the opposing team. I've really never seen it. I've never seen it like this.
No, it's bad in this championship series. But Cleveland worries me in 7 games. Cleveland can be pesky. Cleveland can hit enough to win. The Tigers, I shouldn't even say this. I'm going to knock on wood here. No way they can win a 7-game series against the Yankees, against the Royals, against the Orioles. They're just not built for it offensively or defensively with their pitching. They're not.
I really hope they don't win. Like, I don't want them to win the series.
I
want Cleveland.
I believe in not rooting for a team. Like, I don't think you should be rooting for a Padres or Dodgers here because you just, not that you can't, it's not wrong to do it, but
Yeah.
I can't control who my team plays, so I really don't care. And I don't want to be sitting here, oh, let's play the Tigers, and then you're down 2-0 and Scooble's pitching game 3, and I'm like, what's going on right now?
Right.
Because I feel like that happens. But yeah, I don't know what this. It's a very odd feeling for me because the Yankees have never had home advantage. They've never been the 1 seed in the championship series. They've never played a team other than Houston, and Houston always felt like you were just climbing an uphill battle. They always had better pitching. They always had a better lineup. And now the Yankees have, no matter who plays in this series, the Yankees have better pitching. Their bullpen right now feels as good as Cleveland's. The bullpen in round 1 was a wonderful surprise. You have a lineup that's better. I don't care if the Yankees are scoring 3 runs a game in Kansas City. Your lineup's better than Cleveland's and Detroit's by far, by a significant margin. Your home advantage is better than theirs. It's just,
unless you're listening to the game on TBS. Unless you're listening to the game on TBS.
If you're listening to the game on TBS, you have no advantage. You have a August night on a Tuesday playing the Reds kind of crowd.
That game looked depressing last night.
Oh my God. And dude, if you listen to it on the radio, that place, you can't even hear the broadcasters on the radio. The place is jacked. 55,000 Royals fans going nuts. I could not believe how loud it was on the radio 2 nights ago. And now just nothing on TBS. Nothing.
So you're getting the number 1 crew. You're getting Anderson, obviously. And I hope they switch in and put Darling with Anderson for the CS.
Yeah.
But you also just need a complete. And I didn't watch much or listen to much of the Tigers Guardian series. So if the broadcast elements of the sound quality and not being able to get back from breaks because we're still doing it in a game interview and we miss a pitch or two, I don't know if on the other side of that it was as bad. You'd have to tell me that, but I don't know.
No, it was just only their broadcast.
Because TBS, especially when the Mets in 15 were in the postseason, I love the Mets on TBS.
Yeah.
I love watching games on TBS usually. So this is a major surprise to me.
They're good. They know how to do this. They've done a bunch of games.
Anderson and Davis, again, I said it 2 days ago. I think they're the 2 best guys in the business.
Mm-hmm.
They're great.
Yeah. They're great. But now it's I don't know what's going on in that series with their entire broadcast overall. Costas, this is what I'll say about Costas. I love Bob Costas. I always have. Broadcasting legend.
Mm-hmm.
Not a play-by-play all-timer, but he's always sounded this way. It's not just like Al Michaels now is pretty monotone, pretty lackadaisical in the booth. He's 80. He's had one of the greatest careers of play-by-play ever. Costas was a great host and reporter on ESPN and doing the NBA back in the day and doing the NFL and everything he did. And now, and the Olympics, he was always great in the Olympics.
Right.
But now I'm just kind of, he's doing play-by-play, whatever. I don't care as much about the Costas call as everyone else does. But the broadcast itself, not having crowd noise, that's a large part of what makes watching playoff baseball so special. The crowd. You need the crowd noise to be really loud. You got to jack it up. So
No,
to not have good crowd noise was terrible.
and I'll
And to
disagree with
miss
you on
pitches, dude. To miss pitches, what a mess.
can't miss pitches. They even did that a couple of times coming back from break on Fox. The breaks are so long. It's 2.5 minutes. It's brutal. That extra 30 seconds is brutal every break because of the postseason national TV. I'll say this. I completely disagree with you. I think Costas equally ruins it. I understand he's a legend. I know how much of a legend he is. It sucks that he's getting dragged through the mud here for the younger generation because their whole view on Costas is going to be, oh, he's a boring old man that, is living in the 1930s still. That's not the case, but he is absolutely brutal. I thought Adam Amin on the Fox broadcast for the Mets rose to every big moment on both sides of things, Mets and Phillies, and made those calls feel special as well. So for Costas to ruin moments the way he did in this series, I understand you have the ability to go listen to your home radio guy and listen to his call of the play synced up with the TV, but man, it ruins it. It absolutely ruins it. And he did a terrible job, and he sounds like a stubborn old man that wants to call a game like he's doing a game in the 40s or 50s. And that's not how you do it today.
Yeah, and that's fair to feel that way because obviously you're with a lot of people. A lot of people have expressed that same sentiment. I'll just pivot to Darling because you mentioned him. I like Ron a lot, and I have no complaints about Ron. How upset do Gary, Keith, and Ron have to be watching these Mets games not working them? I know that realistically you can't have your local TV broadcast do the games. I get that. Financially, contractually, I understand all of it. But for Mets fans and for the three of them to not be able to have a call on these games has to be really disappointing. I know for Mets fans it is. I mean, you would know that because you listen to the Howie call, and Howie is so great, and you wish you could also listen to Gary.
Yeah, no, 100%. Howie has gotten every big call right through the past week and a half here, 2 weeks. Gary must feel just awful. Gary's on the pre and post on SMY giving his takes on things. Keith can give a rat's ass. Keith's somewhere in Florida right now.
Yeah.
On a beach. It was his cat's 22nd birthday yesterday. Happy birthday to Hodge. So that's big. When you got the Mets account posting that in October while they're still winning games, a happy birthday message to Keith's cat, you're doing something well. But it's got to suck. Darling for sure wants to be there. He can, obviously. So,
because at least for Keith, he's in like an off-season mode where he's just enjoying it down in Florida, middle of a hurricane probably, but
throughout the first pitch though on Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, so Keith is just able to enjoy it as a fan. Ron is working Yankee games every night. Yeah. So he can't be thrilled that he's still working calling games that aren't the Mets, while the Mets, let's be honest, Mets are the story of the postseason right now. Mm-hmm. The Mets beating Milwaukee and Philadelphia, they're the story of the playoffs, and Ron is watching as a distant spectator while he has to work on Yankees Royals, which,
with
is
Bob Costas.
All right.
You hear him though? Do you hear him? Like he's like,
Costas,
here we go again. Like he sounds so distraught.
I'm trying to give the guy the respect that he deserves for his career.
No, he's in the Hall of Fame. He's rich as hell. It was terrible.
Yeah,
I don't care.
I looked up his contract the other day. It says Bob Costas is worth over $50 million. I was like,
oh my God, he should give it back after that performance in this series.
No.
That was terrible.
Dude, the Stanton double from 2 nights ago was the most uninspired call. To pull it up. I'm really not trying to hate on the guy, but
come on.
And I'll emphasize again.
Bobby Witt dives to the opposite side of the field, throws to second, gets one, and yes, Stanton's running, and gets Stanton at first, even though it took 10 seconds to get the ball to first. And Stanton, we just talked about it the other day. He just can't run. He can't run anymore. That's what it is. No, come on, Bob. Bobby just made a great play. Can you get a little excited for it? It was a big play.
That was a really good double play, too.
Spot. Come on.
I'm trying to find this double on the
oh my God.
Talking Yanks Twitter X account. I'm almost there. It's from 2 nights ago. And it was the first run of the game. And I'm sitting there saying, why are we not a little more excited? Just a little punch. I don't need you to be Gus Johnson.
Well, Gus Johnson makes it about himself. I can't stand Gus
Yeah,
Johnson.
I just need a little. All right, here we go.
Just imperceptible. Stanton hits one well in the gap in left center field, and that's going to get down. Soto heading for third and being waved home. The peg to the plate is late. It's an RBI double for Stanton, who pumps his fist as he arrives.
That's the first run of the game. A man scores from first.
It actually
double off the base of the wall.
You know what it sounds like?
What?
It sounds like AI. It sounds like they just AI generated his voice and was like typing like this and getting him ready to go and like typing it to something. That's what it sounded like. Like he was the robot Karen from SpongeBob.
Yeah, that's
Plankton's wife. That's what it sounded like. The Malik Neighbors out Sunday night. Great.
I think that
go to the Travis Scott concert. Sorry.
I think that he's done for the postseason now, right? Costas?
Yeah. You got Anderson.
He's out. It's Anderson, who's very good. And who do the Mets have? It's Davis?
Joe Davis.
Davis, yeah. So that's excellent pair of commentators. Who has the World Series this year? Fox?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Davis will call the World Series this year. You know who I miss in the mix while we're talking about broadcasters, and then we'll go all Mets for the rest of this, is Joe Buck. I like Joe Buck a lot. Miss having him on the playoff games. One of my favorites of all time, Joe Buck. So not having him on the Fox broadcast stink. And also, why didn't ESPN put their money into getting playoff baseball games? They do all the Sunday night baseball. They put all that money into hockey, and you just have to imagine.
They do the wild card.
Oh, they did. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Wild card doesn't. Yankees don't play in the wild card round.
Right. You're not watching. They don't have Buck on those games. Buck doesn't want to do baseball.
He doesn't want to do baseball anymore.
I miss Buck 100%, but I also love Davis so much.
Davis is the best baseball announcer in the world right now. There's not a better baseball announcer.
You know what's funny? The Dodgers can win tonight, and he does the Dodger games for Sports LA, whatever they call there. I don't even care.
He won't show it. He's not biased.
He'll be right down the middle. He'll be perfect. I love his voice. The only guy that won't be down the middle is Smoltz. You'll get the snarky comments. Smoltz can go F himself. But either way, I think, it'll be great.
All right, well, then let's talk Mets here. What a win on Wednesday night. To really, you were, of course, in the building. Check out Mike's live review from Citi Field talking about the game. But this was an excellent game for the Mets to win. I was in the car driving home from school. Yankees and Mets are both on, so I'm listening to the Yankees. Yankees go to an inning break. I'm turning on 880, listening to Howie. I am not even kidding, Mike. With no stake in this game, I had goosebumps listening to the call of the Grand Slam live in the car. This Mets win, led by Lindor, could not have been scripted better.
No, it was perfect. Kevin, it felt like one of those nights, and I said to my friend after the second inning in a row, they loaded the bases or had guys on and didn't score. I said, it wasn't even like this negative view. I just said, they're going to lose tonight, and they're going to have the same exact game they did in Game 5 against Wheeler, where they don't hit for 8 innings, and it looks like they're about to be eliminated, and they'll beat them. They're just going to make it so much harder on themselves, and because that's what it felt like. They weren't hitting with guys on, and when Lindor came up, they had the bases loaded, nobody out. Alvarez grounds out into a force, so he just took the place of Martinez, a force at home, and so you're getting antsy. Like, again, they have him on the ropes, and they're going to let him off. And our guy, our king, Francisco Lindor, doesn't allow that to happen, and he puts it over the wall against their best reliever, against their best high-leverage reliever in the 6th inning. He goes to the closer, Estevez, to try and get out of that, and he puts it over the wall. Howie's call, they were famished of the big hit all night, and Lindor delivers a feast, something along those lines.
That's exactly what he said.
You can't get anything better than that. You really can't get anything better than that. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, Howie's the best going radio right now in the playoffs. He's just every moment he's nailed. How about Lindor? All of these big moments that the Mets have had. Alonso, home run in Milwaukee. Obviously in Atlanta, the win in Atlanta,
Mhm.
which was a playoff game. All of these big moments for the Mets offense in the clutch have either started or ended with Lindor. He has not been absent for any of these moments, which is just the mark of a guy who is invaluable, irreplaceable for his team. And when we talk about MVP players, there is, whether he wins it or not, whether it changes people's votes or not, which it wouldn't because they're already in, but Lindor is just, the personification of what the award would mean and what that kind of player is. And how about this moment, Mike? He hits the grand slam, rounds first. He doesn't even, not even a smile from a guy
Yep.
who's smiled for 13 years, whatever, however long he's been in the league, 10 years. A guy that smiles all the time, doesn't even crack a smile, no pimp job, rounds the bases. And this is what I thought it was. A lot of people will say it's, and we don't know, it could have just been Lindor having a moment and rounding the bases. That's probably all it was. But I don't think it was a classy, this game's not over, it's not a walk-off or anything, we still have a lot of time left. Maybe that's part of it. But I thought that was just a moment of, this is what we do. This is the Mets, and we're better than the Phillies. We're better than you. This is how we handle our business. And we're not surprised we're in this spot. Lindor's not surprised that he hit that or that he won that game. And honestly, if you're surprised that Lindor hit a grand slam there or even came up with a big hit, you just haven't watched any Mets baseball this year.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think, and he had said, the job, essentially the Kobe line, the job is not finished. We want to get to that ultimate spot of winning a championship. And, that's great. And, he obviously, he celebrates after the game and he's emotional after the game. And, it's about finishing that game and then getting to the next step and finishing the next step and keep going. And I think that's his mentality, but it was very classy. It was very, very classy. He got praised big time for that because you get the two bozos freaking, and I love it. Alonso and Winker setting the tone on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Alonso hits the home run. He chucks the bat up in the air. You got Winker staring at his bomb for 5 seconds before he rounded the bases. So, it works in both ways. You got your bad boys, and then you got your guy, your leader, your true number one player doing what he did in that spot when they felt down. They did feel down in that game that, it wasn't going to be, and it wasn't going to be this special night. And to have that night is incredible because they've never clinched at Citi Field anything, a playoff spot, nothing at Citi Field. So that was really special. And how about Quintana, man? Again, I mean, he is on one of those runs where, and I'm going to say, we said it about Manaea. DeGrom had crazy runs, right? Where he would just go, 7 innings scoreless. And Nimmo said it about Manaea in August, September-ish around there, where he had 3 straight starts where he went 7 innings plus and a run or two in those 21 innings and a bunch of strikeouts. And Nimmo said, we haven't seen somebody pitch like this here since Jacob DeGrom. And that got a lot of news. Wow, that's big praise. And it was true, though. Quintana, I'm not going to go to the DeGrom level, but Quintana lately has just been unbelievable for this team. Unbelievable.
That's why I think people are confused on the Mets. Is if you're a national fan and you've been watching from, watching games in California fan all year, Texas fan, anywhere Midwest or beyond, and you really have no reason to have watched the Mets all season, and I'm not blaming you for not watching the Mets, just because you're not watching New York's team who was not competing for a division play games, really. It just was, they weren't a nationally televised team often. But I think now you get to the playoffs and you see the names in the rotation. Severino, Quintana, Peterson, Manaea, and Senga, who didn't pitch all year. And let's be honest, you look at that on paper, you're saying, how the hell is this team pitching well?
Right.
It's got to run out eventually, but they've been pitching well since June 1st.
Yeah.
June 1st, the magical date that we have to
Yeah.
keep throwing out there. Best
Yeah.
team in the league since June 1st. Everyone's been playing really well since June
4
1st.
months. It's a lot of time.
It's 4 months of great pitching. And then at the same time, if you've been watching them, you say, you know what? All 4 of these veterans, taking Senga out of the equation, all 4 of these veterans we've gotten kind of lucky this year. And I'm not saying lucky in a way that it should diminish any of the success.
Right.
But we've gotten lucky this year that they've stayed healthy and they've performed. Because when you sign 4 veterans like that, you hope 2 of them are as good as they've been. Not 4 of them. You don't expect or hope for 4 of them. It just doesn't happen.
Just think about this. So Quintana had a decent year last year, and they expected Quintana to be a 4, 3, 5, so anywhere in that range. And that's basically what he was, right? And they got that out of him, and he stayed healthy. You needed Manaea to show you that in 2023, when he made some changes to his arsenal, that those were going to last. And for a couple of months, it was like, it hit or miss. And then he changed his arm slot, and everything changed for him. But you needed a bounce back from Manaea. You needed a bounce back from Severino. Not a huge bounce back from Severino. Like, stay healthy, not tip your pitches, have some velocity. I mean, Severino's the one where it's like all came together, because you saw it with Manaea last year that possibly something can be. And you saw it with Quintana last year where he's not a bad pitcher. He still can pitch in this league. And you needed Peterson to develop and stay healthy. And he did that. Severino's a guy where it's like, holy crap, you got lucky. That's how I feel, at least. With Manaea, I'd hand Manaea a 5-year, $125 million contract. I think he's worked out his issues. I think the Manaea you saw on Tuesday night, that you saw down the stretch since he changed the way he pitches, I think this is Manaea for a while. So, they give credit to Hefner, give credit to Chris Sale. I don't know who you give credit to, but it's a remarkable turnaround for a staff that we thought was going to be the weakest part of this team.
And this is literally the best year of Sean Manaea's career, which has been a pretty good career. I mean, for a guy to be in the league this long, to be a starting pitcher for this long, he had some good years with Oakland and just some solid years as a back-end rotation guy for San Diego last year, for San Francisco last year, and then for San Diego the year before, and then he had the A's for 6 years he was with the A's, I think. So Manaea's had a nice little career here that is underrated, because he's never been the ace. He's never been the stud dominant pitcher, and he's still not there. But man, is this not one of the best number 2 or 3s in the whole postseason?
No, 100%.
I'll tell you right now, the Dodgers would love to have Manaea pitching for them in big games in the playoffs right now. The Padres without Musgrove could definitely find big games for Manaea. The Yankees would love to have Manaea on second day, and Cleveland and Detroit would love to have Manaea on their second day. So what are we talking about here, thinking that this Mets pitching staff is no good? This is a really good group. And a lot of people are just saying, because of the names, that they're not aces and they're not $40 million a year pitchers, that this is not an elite pitching staff. This is a very good pitching staff.
Right. No, it is. And July, 2.70 ERA, 3.52 in August, 3.32 in September. He's been really good. He's been nails for this team. He had one bad month, June. That was it. He's been nails. 100%.
Yep.
The bullpen. Actually, I don't want to talk about the negative yet. The bullpen's a little bit of a negative.
Yeah,
but
I was going to say, for a positive with Mendoza, and you can go back to whatever you're about to say too if it's not related. I don't care.
Yeah.
Mendoza, I thought, has pushed the right buttons in the postseason as well. Even when the bullpen decisions don't work out, I think he's making the right calls throughout this playoff. Do you agree with that?
I do, because I don't think he's had many options. So I think the choices he's made have, whether they worked or not, were the right choices. He's not going to have that excuse anymore. He's going to have guys rested now. He's finally going to have his guys rested and ready to go for this series. So, now it's really going to be like, all right, Mendy, you're playing matchups. Sure, you're trusting guys to stay in, whether they're starters or relievers that you put in. But I think he's done a great job deploying David Peterson. I thought I would have left him in another inning on Wednesday. I wouldn't have brought Diaz in. I knew he was going to go to Diaz though, but I wouldn't have. And Diaz walks the first two guys, and then we know what happens. And by the way, I mean, he walked the first two guys, and you're like, oh my God, here we go. I have confidence with how well he pitched those last three batters that I'm like, all right, maybe he found something there. Maybe he had the confidence in the fastball again, and the slider was nasty on a strikeout to Marsh. Maybe he found it.
Yep, agree with that. And the Mets, let's reemphasize because I have it in my notes that it was no mistake they beat Philadelphia. We talked about that. I made a video about it yesterday. No mistake that this team got to win in this series. Philadelphia, on the other hand, got to feel pretty down if you're a Philly fan.
Yeah.
Adds insult to injury when you lose to any division opponent, especially in that Phillies-Mets rivalry. I don't think you want to lose to a lower seed if you are the higher seed in that, regardless of if they're better than you or not. And I don't think Philly fans have come to grips with the fact that the Mets are just genuinely a better team because all those names on Philly don't mean much when the Mets have guys who are just playing better baseball.
Yeah, they can't understand and they can't wrap their head around that there can actually be another really good wild card team that comes out of it and goes on a run. They think that's now slotted for them for the past 2 years. Like they're the only team that can do that. So they can't wrap their head around that. That's fine. They also were not the better team coming into this series. They lost to the better team. The Mets, outside of a couple of late innings there in that in the game 2, they dominated the series. Yeah. I mean, the Phillies had a 1-0 lead for 7 innings in game 1. Great. The Mets pitched incredibly well after that, got on base on Wheeler a couple of times, and then finally broke through against the bullpen. Then in game 3, they dominated most of the game. Phillies come back, get to the Met bullpen, and then that was it. I mean, Mets dominated the series.
Yeah, they did. They were great. And the way they lost game 2, I knew after that they were going to win the series. The way you lose in a game where you had no relievers available, we knew after the Vientos home run, they most likely were not going to win that game. But it didn't matter. 1-1 out of Philly, you showed them that you're better in that series. They beat you on your day where you had the least arms to use.
How deflating that home run must have been.
Yeah, that was. They needed a clean win in that game. They needed a real lockdown game after losing the Wheeler day. You needed to feel comfortable about your win, and you just barely get out with one. And then you got to go to City.
You think Thompson knew after that pen wasn't going to be able to hold down?
Yeah, he had to have known, and he definitely wasn't sitting there saying, "Man, we're going to lose this series." But he's definitely saying, our pen is not cut out to make this easy for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then beating Nola the next day felt like nails in the coffin. And on that game 4, just the emotions of going through it as a fan, objectively watching it, the only stock I have in that game is that I want this show to have both teams for as long as possible. But that's really, in the big picture, not much of a stake for me. So the Mets are down 1-0, and it just felt like, whether you were a Philly fan, or I'm sure Mets fans were a little more negative than this, just because you're a fan, the negative seems to come out when you're losing in a playoff game, of course. It was just a matter of time. You've one run for so long. It's just a matter of time before the Mets tie this and take a lead. And then Lindor gets up, bases loaded, no outs. And at the bare minimum, the game's getting tied. He's not striking out in that spot. You're not getting a double play with 1-run scores either. He's popping up or hitting a ground out that turns into a fielder's choice with 1 out on it. He's not striking out there. And then, of course, the guy takes you deep to right center. Like, the worst possible outcome.
Their best reliever, 99 mile per hour on the corner. He takes him deep.
And it was great. It was a great way to win for the Mets and a great way to end that series. I want to ask this, a little bit of a pivot away from the Mets here.
Let's give Vientos his flowers, because Vientos had one of the better NLDS performances, I think, ever. He was great in the entire DS, so give him a lot of credit. He was unbelievable.
Vientos was excellent. A couple 2-hit games and 2+ multi-hit games, I meant to say. But he's been great all year, man. We've known that.
Yeah.
We've known this
know
guy's
that.
been great all year.
Got to say something about him. He's great. Unbelievable.
Yeah, he's our guy. We've known that. And everyone's just playing well right now. Nobody in the Mets lineup, 1 through 9, feels like a free out.
No. Except Iglesias a little bit in that series, but he's fine.
Yeah, but
He's
he made
got
OMG.
He's got the remix out today.
And the
with
remix
Pitbull.
with Pitbull. Dude, that's big. Remix
That's
with
huge.
Pitbull.
Yeah, I listened to it. It's great.
I heard the preview video that was out. That's good. That's a good song.
Yeah. I played that illegally on the radio last week.
It's worth it though.
Yeah, I'll do it again this week.
Great. Worth it. Great song. My MLB point here.
Yeah.
Do you think the format has flaws? To the point where it should be changed. A lot of people are talking about format should be changed. You have a 1 seed lose a 2 seed lose in Philly, but a top seed with the bye lose. The 6 seed in the NL the last 2 years has gone to the World Series. It looks like they got a great shot again this year at getting a 6 seed to the World Series. You had the Yankees come out dead with the bats in the series against Kansas City. You had Cleveland and Detroit. Cleveland cannot score against Detroit here. Is there a flaw with the week off on the format?
So I think in the National League, let's look at it like this. If the Padres are able to win tonight, right, and they advance the NLCS, I will say the same thing I said about the Mets and the Phillies. For a longer period of time, the Mets were better than the Phillies, and the Padres were better than the Dodgers.
Yes.
The Padres have been the second best team, I think, since June 1st, and the best team since the All-Star break or the trading deadline. I forget which one. Unbelievable run for them. So I think it does have some flaws. I do worry about it a little bit. But in terms of this season, no. I think the teams that had been playing better for a longer period of time are winning baseball games. I think Atlanta losing both times is kind of problematic. Maybe that's just a team issue and a coaching issue because Atlanta in 2022 from June on were you thought the Mets were good from June on. That team from June on in 22 was literally on pace with the 116 win Mariners. Okay, that's how good that team was. So the fact that they got hot like that from June on, took the break, and then got slaughtered by Philadelphia, that to me is a concerning one. But the other ones, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
I agree with that. I don't love the week off. I think they need to. I'm going to bring this one up. Did you see the John Boy proposition for changing
I did not.
format? So he said, and I didn't mind this one. I don't love it. I don't love it or hate it any more than what we have now. And I don't mind what we have now. I love getting the 3 days of wild card baseball, those 2 days of wild card baseball. That schedule is awesome for a baseball fan, all day watching playoff games. So I don't mind what we have now. But the John Boy proposition was that in those wild card games, instead of you have to win 2 out of 3, the higher seed has to win 1. The lower seed has to win 2. So the series can't go longer than 2 days. And you have Sunday is the last game of the season. Tuesday, Wednesday are the wild card games. And the first game of the DS would be Thursday. So the 1 seeds only get 3 days of rest.
That's not bad. It's just such a disadvantage for those teams.
It's a huge disadvantage for those teams because the team that has to win 2 games, if they do win, now has absolutely nothing for game 1 of the division series because they are going to deploy all their top arms for those first 2 games.
Yeah.
But they have a little bit. I don't think you can go back to the 1-game wild card with 3 division winners. That's not a solution either. And people have said that that's not a solution. This right now feels good. And it's going to be here for a few years at least until the next CBA, which comes up in 2027. So it's going to be here for a few seasons.
How about no buys? I mean, how about no buys?
No buys? Like Dodgers, Mets, round 1 type of thing? Or
right, like, all right, fine. You don't want the buy? You think it's hurting you? Great. You're playing in the wild card. It's not the wild card anymore. It's the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah. What about if the DS was best of 7? So that these teams have more time. If the bye is impacting them, they have more time or more margin for error. Because the best of 5 compared to a best of 7 is way less margin for error.
That I could get with. That I can get with.
But is it too many games in October for pitchers?
No, because you need an extra. You're not using an extra starter, in that. You know what I mean? Like if it's a 5-game series, technically one starter is not used. So for the bullpen arms, yes, of course, but you have to adjust. It's 2 more games.
All right, and then the other format question I have, the League Championship Series format, really, and the World Series. So the best of 7 format of 2 homes, 3 roads, 2 homes.
Yep, for the home.
Do you like that when every other league is doing 2 homes, 2 roads, home, road, home?
I've never really thought about it. My team, the last time they were in the championship series, they won. I mean, they swept it, so it didn't really matter. I have never really thought about it. I don't mind it. I don't hate it. It's different. It's cool, I guess.
Yeah.
I have no opinion on it, yes or no. I wonder if it's going to matter this series here for the Mets. We'll see. I mean, I can't believe they're in the National League Championship Series.
I can't
believe it. I can't believe it.
What
do you think about tonight's? What do you think about tonight's game? You say, what were you going to say? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say I think I don't think there's much of an issue because you have with the format, because you just have the 3 home games. Unless a team wins all 3, they feel like they're at the disadvantage because they have to go back for 6 and 7. Like to force a game 7, if you're down 3-2, you have to win on the road, and then you have to win game 7 on the road again. Tonight's game is cool. I think it's really great for baseball from an international standpoint. You have Yamamoto versus Darvish with Shohei Ohtani in the game.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Ha-Sung Kim in the game. So the Japanese aspect, the Asian aspect of baseball, just a boom in this game. Yep. Viewership's gonna be off the charts, I think. Obviously, because there's not many sporting events on tonight if you're not a college football fan. There's
Friday night. It's a big rivalry. It's a good pitching matchup. It's a game 5. Baseball couldn't have asked for a better situation here in this series.
I think it's the Padres tonight, though. And I thought it's the Padres I picked them in the World Series. I picked them to win the World Series. I've thought it's the Padres all series long. And with the matchup, Darvish-Yamamoto, I don't trust Yamamoto, who's been banged up all year, who looked very bad in his first start of the postseason, first career playoff start. I just think San Diego is going to get to him. And LA had their big offensive game in game 4, where I don't know if they can replicate it again. Because Betts, I don't trust still. Will Smith, I don't trust. They had big nights on Wednesday, and they just can't hit with San Diego, I don't think, in this matchup.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You mentioned not rooting for a team because you don't want to come back and bite you in the ass. I thought I wanted the Dodgers about 2 days ago. I'm like, please just be the Dodgers. And now I've kind of just been like, I don't really care who it is. I'm just going to enjoy the game tonight. And the one thing I'll say is, for the Mets perspective, I think it's good there's a game 5 because, like you mentioned with school ball, you can't have any of these 2 pitchers going tonight in game 1 and, 5-7, whatever it would be. So that's a plus. The one thing that scares the hell out of me about the Padres is Darvish. Darvish owns, I don't know if you know this narrative, owns the New York Mets. So that's the one thing where I'm like, if it's the Dodgers, whatever. The Dodgers pitching is where I think the Mets have a big advantage, bullpen and starting rotation. Looking at the Padre bullpen and those 3 starters, those are some arms. So I think for the Mets, it's, whoever, why be scared of anybody at this point? There's no reason to be, but I'm just excited to watch them. I hope it's a really good, close baseball game tonight, and hope for a really great ending.
Yeah, that's what I'm really looking for here. You can't root for either of these teams. I was kind of in the same boat as you. I thought a few days ago I said the Mets would beat the Dodgers. I don't think they'd beat the Padres.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, Mets are beating either of these teams.
You think so?
I'm telling you right now, Mets are beating either of these teams. Because for these two teams, what worries me about them in the next round, this is such a big rivalry. It feels like their peak and their World Series of the postseason. They want to beat each other, especially the Padres want to beat the Dodgers.
Yep.
The pod. I don't know what I just said. The
The
Padres want to beat
Dodgers. The Dodgers.
Dodgers. The Padres want to beat the Dodgers so bad
Yeah.
that I think you see the way Manny and Tatis behave during these games. There's such a high of beating them that they're going to come back down to earth and maybe hit a slump these first couple games on the road and at home in San Diego. And then they got to go on the road to Citi Field, where it just feels like the Mets are never going to lose at Citi Field in the postseason because it was so electric those two games. I like the Mets against either of these teams because they feel like mentally they will be the most ready and even keeled for this series. Now, on the other side with the Dodgers, I just don't like their pitching in a series with the Mets. I don't like their pitching for a 7-game series with anybody, let alone the Mets. I think the Mets win this series no matter what, but obviously they could lose against either team too.
Yeah.
They're two very good teams.
Padres are great. The Dodgers are great too. And it's funny that you have a rivalry with the Padres and the Dodgers, and you also have that rivalry with the Mets and the Phillies, and it's a big rivalry. And it's like you didn't really feel it with the Mets because of like the way they played, and it was just like business. We're taking care of you. And here, they hate each other, and you could see it. You could definitely see it. McNeil is going to play 7 innings today and tomorrow in the Arizona Fall League, and they'll evaluate his readiness for the NLCS roster.
He probably should be on the roster if he could swing and
there's a chance they keep Acuna on the roster as well, and they demote a pitcher.
That's true. So, yeah, man, NLCS Mets in the NLCS. Next time we do this show, I don't know if we'll do it Tuesday or if it'll be next Friday.
I'll do it every day.
Yeah, we'll do one every day with this. This is awesome. This is all we could have dreamed of starting this show. I mean, but the Mets are in the National League Championship Series, Mike.
Yeah,
and they have Carlos Mendoza in year 1 has a decision on his NLCS roster.
And this is what I wanted to say. Thank God you mentioned Mendoza. Mendoza has a chance to finally line up his pitching.
Yeah.
How would you line up the pitching? I'm thinking, I have my opinions on what I would do. This is how I would do it. I would go Manaea game 1. That's a hot take, apparently.
I'm going Manaea game 1. No hesitation. No hesitation. Right. Manaea is my game 1 pitcher. Why is that a hot take? Who else would pitch?
Severino.
No, Sevy's my game 2.
Sevy would be my game 2. I would come back Quintana game 3.
Yeah.
And depending on what happens in those two. If I'm tied 1-1 heading back to Citi Field, I would go Quintana game 3. And then I would go the Senga-Peterson route game 4.
That's what I would do also. That's Senga, Peterson, McGill, even though McGill shouldn't really touch the field.
Right. If I'm down 2-0 heading back to Citi Field, I might flip Senga, Peterson and Quintana.
Yeah. So that's exactly how I feel. Manaea is a no-brainer for me in game 1. I think he has to pitch.
He'll be on regular rest
because he's on regular rest, and I want him eligible for as many games as possible.
Yeah.
I want him rested for as many games as possible. I want to use him more than any other pitcher in the rotation. And Severino, I don't want Severino out there more than Manaea in game 5 or 7 or 4. If they're pivotal, I don't want Severino out there. I want Manaea.
I agree. And I like Sevy, and he pitched really well up until the 6th inning. He imploded and gave up the lead in Philly. He was really dominant in that game. But I agree. And I trust Sevy in game 2, but I don't want him out there. Exactly. I want Manaea.
Yeah. No, I'm putting Manaea out. And then for the Padres and Dodgers, what would their rotations look like? Obviously, Yamamoto and Darvish would be pushed to game 3.
Probably going to get King. You get King, Cease, Darvish.
Yeah.
and then you would get Flaherty, Buehler, Yamamoto. Who, by the way, I know Buehler gave up 6 runs in that game or whatever,
Yeah,
and he hasn't been good all year. He got screwed and hosed in that inning big time.
He was pretty solid in that game.
He wasn't that bad. He ended up giving up the big home run, but he really wasn't that bad. I mean, you still don't trust him if you're a Dodger fan, but he wasn't as bad. Like the Met fan, if that's who the Mets play, the Met fan will say, "Oh, 6 runs, look at that." Like, no, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, but then you look at that rotation though. Flaherty, Buehler, Yamamoto, you're not afraid of any of the three. You're not worried about any of the three. I think the Mets are better on every day of that.
They might be right now. Flaherty hasn't pitched in the postseason. He hasn't been good in his career.
King, Cease, Darvish, the Mets are at the disadvantage with King and Darvish. And potentially with Cease. If he gets good back. Because he was good in the regular season. Cease looked very good in the regular season.
They hit Cease this year, though. But, Cease is really good. He's a really good pitcher.
But if it was King, Cease, Darvish, King's better than Minaya, Cease better than Severino, and Darvish probably over cue ball.
Yeah, 100%. I could. 100%.
Yeah. All right, man. Anything else you want to talk about today?
No. Pumped up. Big weekend for New York.
Next time we're on, we'll have actual championship series games to discuss. Mets kick it off on Sunday. Yankees kick it off on Monday. And what are the Mets on? 7:38 on?
And then 4 o'clock on Monday, which is brutal.
That's bad. What's the Yankees schedule? I just saw
Yankees are 7:37 on Monday.
Yeah, and then
so the next time if we go Tuesday, we'll have the first 2 of the Mets, and we'll have the first game of the Yankee previewing the second game of the Yankee.
Yeah, let me see.
If we go Tuesday.
L.C.S. They gonna be a schedule here? No. Yeah, so they'll play. Do the Yankees play Monday and Tuesday? Yeah.
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday. Woo! Mike, we're here, man.
Ready to go.
Final four, Mets and Yankees. I think we're in a spot where we are guaranteed to get at least one team in. 50% chance one of these teams get in.
Yeah, I think it's 75% chance one of them gets in.
No, it's 50.
Why did Heyman tweet that out then yesterday? You gotta read this.
Because it's the I saw that. It's like the ESPN Power Index or the MLB Power Index or whatever. It gives the Yankees like a 94% chance to be in.
Oh, okay. Good.
So that's why it's so high. But realistically, it's just 50%. They're 2 out of 4 teams are New York.
Interesting.
Like one of them should get in. How disappointing is this if 2 weeks we're sitting here and the World Series is Tigers Padres?
I won't watch.
We won't be doing a show if it's Tigers Padres.
I can't believe we're gonna get a Subway. We're probably getting a Subway World Series.
Year 1 of doing the Boroughs. Subway World Series is
we might have to end the podcast. Like, you're not getting much better than that.
Yeah, because next year when Soto's on the Mariners and the Yankees are 3 games over 500 and the Mets are 12 games under, and it just feels like this year was such a distant memory, then it's not going to matter at all. All right, well, we'll wrap it up here. Next time we talk, NLCS, ALCS, full swing. Mets and Yankees both going, hopefully with leads. If we're back here on next Tuesday, both teams hopefully have a lead, or at least for the Mets, they'll be even heading back to Citi Field.
We'll take a split on the West Coast.
Yeah, wrap it up here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Back live, hopefully Tuesday, 10 or 11 a.m. So keep an eye out for that. We'll announce it on the Instagram story. And then next Friday, of course, we'll be back same time. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the weekend. Be safe. Be well.